Welcome to Priority Podcast, leveraging life experiences for the sake of the kingdom. We help you rise as a resilient, Christ-centered woman, rooted in truth, steady in the struggle, and confident in your calling. Here's our host, Carmen Halsey Mangini.
Hi, friends. We're glad to be back relaunching our Priority Podcast, and we hope that you're going to meet us here, and we hope over the months to come that you're going to find some content that you find to be useful. I'm excited because we sort of put our podcast on hold if you've been following us in the past, and that's because we really didn't think that there was a purpose to the podcast. We share stories, and that was important, and we thought God was leading there, but just through a series of logistical things, we felt like He was saying, hey, put this on hold. And then last fall, it was you guys that reached out to us and said, hey, some of this content that we delivered in a pastor's wives retreat this last fall, a lot of our pastor's wives found it very useful and very practical to help them, to help you. And that was the request to say, this needs to be a podcast. So that's what we're doing. So we heard you, so we're giving it a try. For those of you guys know me, I'm not the content contributor. Right, here's your commercial. If you've not done a Working Genius, reach out and I'll help you. But I am the galvanizer. So who's the right person that can do what needs to be done, and who do we feel like God's calling for this time? And that's what I'm excited about today, to introduce you to these ladies. So you're going to get a chance to get to know these three ladies, but they are basically all counselors / coaches. They're going to tell you a little bit about themselves, but they're here to bring the content. And what we've asked, our whole goal of this podcast with this relaunch, is to bring topics that you're going to actually find practical and applicable in your personal lives, with your family, your marriages, your children, your workplaces, and ultimately your ministry, which is all of that, right? Yeah. That encompasses everything. We don't live these siloed, segmented pieces of life. It's holistic. So we've got topics that have been prayed over, that we feel like God has brought those. But you know us, if the Holy Spirit leads different, and we hear from you guys that maybe there's a specific pain point that you're struggling with, obviously we're going to go after that and try to build that into the podcast. So this is meant to be proactive, but we know that we live life, and we know that we're in a broken and a cursed world. So you may find something, even though we're speaking it proactive, to make us stronger, more resilient leaders, to increase our leader capacity. It still may be something that you find, oh my goodness, that's me, or there's a root there that needs to be dealt with. God may use something to reveal a spot that you just need to have tweaked, or do a pause and take some time to work. Right. And there's really a commercial for counseling and coaching, right? Counseling, there's something in the past that somebody needs to help you go back and fix that, or identify it, whatever it is. Coaching kind of starts with where we're at and helps us go forward to that next step. Both are needed, both are proactive, but they're different. And so what you'll hear through the podcast, you're going to get some samplings of both. But I want you to know all these ladies are certified counselors, and again, they're going to tell you a little bit about themselves and what God has them specifically doing. But they're also well acclimated to the coaching world and what that looks like in somebody's life. So with that, I'm going to hush, and you're going to get a chance to meet these ladies. So I'm going to just start with you, Leslie, and if you'll tell them, let them get to really know you. We want to know each other. So your name, where you're from, where God has you, kind of your heartbeat, and then some of your actual practice and ministry that you're involved in.
Sure, absolutely. My name's Leslie Davis. And it is a joy, it's an honor to be here and to be amongst these women here. I'm just thrilled to do that. My husband is pastor of Arthur Southern and has been for the last 20 years. And so we're very equipped and I want to say settled but not comfortable in our ministry.
That's a good way to say that.
Settled but not comfortable. And the Lord has just been doing some amazing things. My main ministry at the church is a counseling ministry. I also teach on forgiveness. That's been my latest group that I've done. I've done it about 4 or 5 times. And so that's just been amazing, and the Lord has done some wonderful things through that. But Doug and I have also had the privilege of launching our own podcast. It's called The Vision Driven Marriage. We do marriage coaching, and like you were saying in the boat, I think in the prayer before we started, you said that we're able to get into the boat with people, and I think that's the vision-driven marriage. Like, we get into the boat with some of these couples that need just a little extra a little extra help rowing down the river.
Yes,
And
yes,
so,
yeah.
but that's basically it in a nutshell.
That's good, and I like that you went back to the guide. If you've ever read the book Build Your Story Brand,
Yes.
Miller's his last name, I forget, Donald Miller. One of my takeaways, it's more of a business book, was the fact though that people they have to be the hero of their own story, but how does the business or the organization be the guide? In other words, to come in and help them with their problem. And I think that's the thing with us. You can give me a book or reference a book or a podcast, but there's something about somebody that has lived that's willing to come alongside and walk it with me. And girls, that's what we're hopeful for.
Yes,
that in your ministries, God will use you to walk alongside somebody, and it makes it relational evangelism or relational discipleship. I think this is evangelism, for that's going to help meet people in their pain points. But that's our goal, and for you walking with the people that God brings into your life, but also for us, there are people in the network that we know are going to be living out or have lived out some of what you guys hear in these upcoming months, and they're willing to, they may know the book by heart, but they're willing to come alongside and walk life with you, and we all need a friend in times like this, so that's good. All right, Miss Amy.
All right, well, I'm Amy Donathan, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a Christian life coach. So my husband is not a pastor, but he is right there next to me, being my encourager. He was Air Force for 25 years. So we only moved to 3 bases in 25 years, but it was still a life, and was good. But my ministry is really my therapy practice, being able to get in the boat with these people and not see their shame or not flinch at their shame, and kind of not give judgment to them, and just let them, this was your life, this is what you did, this is where your shame is. But you know what? We can work through that. Everything. I have a sign in my office that says everything's figure-outable. I said, dying apart from Jesus is the only thing that's not figure-outable in this life. I said, but everything else, we can get it figured out to give them that hope that they're not stuck there. And, like you said, coaching is really, how do I move forward? I have a lot of clients that really probably don't need therapy as much as they need coaching to move forward. And so, and I love that. I love seeing, I want to work myself out of a job. I want to get in there and help them to be that hero of their own story, to where they're like, I don't need to come back. I'm good. And my latest project is speaking. So I love being in front of a group of women and telling them God's truth and helping them just embrace it and say, because my vision for my speaking is that they just live the life that God has for them. Because I think so many times we get weighed down with what we have believed about ourselves in the past and not God's truth. And so once we take that off, man, God can just use us in so many ways. And that's why he's given us our stories, is to be able to walk alongside somebody, to be able to understand what they went through. So
with some of your speaking most recently, I know you just did a retreat. So it's not just speaking. I mean, you've packaged it where you're equipping them to walk away with something practical to apply.
Yeah, that's the therapist part that always comes out in the retreats or in the conferences is I've been to conferences, and you get that conference high, and then you go home and you don't, and it just kind of life hits.
You don't necessarily walk it out.
So the therapist part of it in there is to give them practical things to take home and be able to remember to do that will fit into their lives, and not just, okay, that was a great conference, I feel great, and then you drive in and your kids have like thrown the food on the floor and dirty diapers and work calls, and so
sometimes I laugh. I said sometimes you go to the next seminar, the next conference, and that might have been your next time out since the last one you were at.
Right.
And you hear something like, that's really good. And it's not that it's new content as much as a reminder that I heard that before, but never did anything with it. It's like, how do I go home and do something? I love what you said, the quote in your office, it's figure-outable. I had a friend lost a son-in-law a couple years ago, and that was really hard, you know, an unexpected loss. And I guess it's a common phrase, but I had not heard it. It'll buff. And so he was military, and he worked on cars and stuff. And so they all had their hoodies. They said Sean was always saying, that'll buff. And I thought, I love that, because something can be a crisis in my life. You ever had that, girls? Where it's like, man, I wish I could rewind the clock 3 seconds, you know? Something I said or something I did or a break. It might be something like an accident, or it may just be a hurtful relationship. And you think you've done it in. There's no hope, right? And I think that's the line, no hope. Yeah. And I love that, because we said when somebody can walk along that relation, say, that'll buff, with confidence, that just speaks hope. And that's what I hear you saying. It's like that. Yeah, I don't know about you girls, but when I can see hope, that's when I'm like, buy here now, you know, push the button, buy here. That's going to transform. And so I think you're starting to get the gist that they're going to deliver content. There will be a lot of teaching, because I've asked them, come in a teacher's format, because I want you to equip us so that we can start to build toolboxes and have episodes that we can go back to on certain subjects. So good deal. All right, Miss Carla.
My turn. So I'm Carla Powderly. I was with some of you at the pastor's retreat, pastor's wives retreat, last fall, and it was such an honor and an amazing experience. So I'm so excited to be welcomed into this collaboration now. I just feel like, is this my life? This is incredible. I'm so happy. I mean, these women are amazing. So I'm a licensed professional counselor in O'Fallon, Missouri. And my specialties are grief and loss, and that's obviously disease and death, but also all the life losses that we encounter, things that come out of nowhere, job loss, devastation in your relationships, marriage loss, those kinds of things, as well as things that we've been anticipating for some time. Those losses are still profound, and sometimes we just need companionship there. So I specialize there. I specialize also in what we call betrayal trauma, which is any kind of infidelity in relationships like marriages. So whether that's addiction to pornography or actual affairs, things like that. I work with a lot of couples on that. I am EFT informed, which may not mean anything to some of you, but I feel like I need to say that for those that do know what that means.
It sounds like the bank, EFT, electronic fund transfer.
It does.
Sorry,
that's exactly
wrong
right.
World. Okay,
that's exactly right. And I love just kind of piggybacking off of some of these concepts. Like I also work with clients a lot with this idea of nothing is ruined.
Yeah.
You know, we want to often put a period there and say it's ruined, period. I ruined it, or he ruined it, or she ruined it, or this loss has ruined everything. And although that can certainly be the feeling, and there's no shame in feeling that, we don't want to stay stuck in that feeling. Because the reality is, as we've all alluded to, nothing is impossible with God. Right. And all of these emotions that we've been given and all of the thoughts that we think, and these are all gifts. And our job as human beings is to learn how to steward those well and be responsible for them as we are responsible to others. And so that's just a big focus for me. I also enjoy teaching and speaking, and Carmen has given me opportunities. I've had some other opportunities around the state in Missouri, and I just love that too. So just happy to be here and can't wait to get to know all of you a little bit better.
Can you see why I'm a little bit excited? Okay. It's content. It's content driven that I'm going to learn. When I see their topics that they've prayed over and brought, thinking these are the topics for the year, I know what's coming. It's it's going to be good. It's just so practical. And can I just say, even me, ladies, reading through some of the notes to get ready to record some of these podcasts, I find myself writing personal notes. That's so-and-so. That's my relationship with this person. That's this.
That's right.
And so you're giving me, again, words, but it brings hope also. And here's kind of the passion point. You heard the relational part. But to me, the church should be the ones delivering hope.
Yes.
And oftentimes I think we don't, because we live busy lives, but we forget that we're sinners still. And I'm not just trying to use general words, but we forget that we're sinners in a broken world. We forget that that we still sin. we may forget or sometimes have never really learned the practice of confession. You know, that's an ongoing thing, you know, with our walk with Christ is confession. It's not if you need to, that's an ongoing thing. And so I want to unpack a little bit, Carla, because you mentioned shame. You talked about this last fall, and this is also a commercial. You may be hearing this before you attend Priority. You may be attending this after Priority, but this is really where the theme of Priority birthed out of this year, because Carla was at our fall retreat. And she was sharing some content again with pastors' wives, and the purpose was, how do they walk with somebody that may be dealing with different things? And I really couldn't tell you what she was speaking about at that particular moment. What I remember, though, is she had made a statement that, and I may have this wrong, Carla, that guilt says I've done something bad. Shame says I am something bad. And when she said that, you could hear across the room, you know, that it resonated. And I remember asking the follow-up question, well, if it's important to know, is somebody dealing with guilt or shame? Because our purpose is, how do we walk with them? That's what we're looking for. How do you equip us to walk with them, right? Then my question was, how do I know? How do I know if it's this or this? And you responded, you said, in your practice, that shame often looks like somebody has almost a works mentality. They can't forgive themselves, and it can be a workaholic. They're some of the heaviest workers in ministry. But they also may jump around a lot of start, stops. And then you said somebody that you may be doing counseling, there's often a repeatable sin that will be popping up that they just can't shake it, and they're so embarrassed, and the shame is so real, they're not going to bring it into the light. And that resonated with me, because I thought, if God uses our stories, right, he says, by the power of the blood and the words of our testimony,
that's right?
If he uses our stories, how many of us aren't sharing our stories because we're shackled in shame?
That's right.
And I'm not talking about non-believers. I'm talking about sitting in our churches. And maybe you guys, you know, on this. And that's what really resonated. And that's our hope, is that we can set the preface that shame does not belong to God. And how do we help women walk? How do we help stay out of that? And how do we help women walk? And it just opened my thinking. And so there's a little bit of the why behind how do we get some of these topics. But it is going to be very informational, that we're giving you information for your toolbox, but we expect you to use it also. We think it's very practical. We've talked a lot about this, right? So what might you want to share, any of the three of you, you know, as far as our why behind this podcast, to maybe go a little bit deeper than what I've already said, so that they can kind of know what to expect from month to month?
Well, I think that you hit the nail right on the head about being equipped, because so often we are not accepting the equipping that we have that's offered to us because of the things, and you know, all the things that we're going to talk about. I know the podcast that I'll be on I believe it drops midsummer possibly, is going to be on comparison, and how that creeps in, and how that shackles us to not share our story, because you know, we're comparing it to you know, our pastor's wife, or our best friend, or you know, somebody else. But it's this sideways glance instead of this upward glance, that we're supposed to be saying, okay, let's check ourselves with the Lord, and have we been faithful in our story?
Wow.
You know, and so I'm really excited about that up and coming, but that's going to equip a lot of women, and that deals with that sneaky comparison. I mean, it slides in like a snake, and you don't even realize that you're comparing. You know, in fact, even just the four of us coming together today, you know, there's this little thing going in my brain going, oh, Leslie, do you really deserve to sit here? You know, well, by God's grace, I don't deserve to sit here, but the Lord has orchestrated this group and this time for such a time as this, and it just gives me, I mean, it just gives me chills to think about it. I just love what the Lord has done, and I'm so thankful for that. And I think that, you know, that's one of the things that's the antidote, is just to say, okay, I know the Lord has brought this together. I know what the Lord is doing here. And, you know, not just for the listener, not just for your sakes, but for our sakes as well.
That's right.
You know, and so I'm just real excited about the topics that are coming up.
Yeah.
And so, Amy, tell us just a hint about your topic that's coming up.
Well, mine is one that I've spoken on that has been so impactful in the conference and the retreats, and that, the lies that we believe that come out of different things in our life from, can be from a child that affect you as an adult, and being able to lay those down. But you can't just lay them down and not fill that spot with something, because it will be empty, and then they will just rush back.
That's right.
You will pick them back up. And so just replacing that with truth.
Yes.
And so how we do that. So
I'm looking
Holy
so
replacement.
forward.
I love that idea.
I'm looking so
So
forward to that episode.
I can't wait to hear your episodes. So
Yeah.
so that's what I think, we don't do that. We live, I tell people, think about what you're thinking.
Yes.
Yep.
Think about what you're thinking. In my practice, I do a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy. And so it's really thinking about what you're thinking.
That's right.
And not just having a thought and then a feeling right after it and reacting out of the feeling.
That's right.
And so think about what you're thinking,
That's right.
and then your reactions, your responses will be different.
That's right.
But you react out of the lies. So
So there's one of the things I love about you three, and I'm gonna go back. Keep your thought, Carla.
I don't even have one.
But no,
My head is empty.
think on, Carla. Think on. But
Oh no.
But that's the equipping, and that's what's special about these ladies. Because, yes, they've been trained, but it's not fluff that you're bringing.
Yeah.
And so I love that you get into the brain science, that we know. And to me, that points back to the Creator.
Yeah.
This is the way your brain thinks. So it starts to make sense why this repetition or this thing is going to be helpful to us, even though it may not make sense at the time. The science, you're explaining the science of it also. And I love that. I love that. So, all right, you had
And
your
that's so
minute.
important. Well, here I go. Yeah, no, I love all of this. And I think that we could have entitled this podcast series Things That Get in the Way.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Comparison and lies that we believe. And an upcoming episode that I'll be doing is on compassion fatigue and caregiver burnout. So even though those things are coming from good that we're doing in the world, it still gets in the way of us continuing to do that good out of a place of freedom. And this is the word for me today, guys, this idea of freedom. Because we have been freed, right? Like Jesus tells us that. It is for freedom that I have set you free. Do not allow yourselves, therefore, to be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. And then I could spend hours writing down all my different yokes of slavery. And so as we're striving to equip, as we're striving to resource, as we're striving to shine light on these places of shame and places that we feel like we need to stay hidden and isolated. The Lord says, no, come to me, come out, come into the light. And he doesn't just ask us to do that just between he and I and he and us, although that's absolutely possible, but he gives us one another to strengthen us, to equip us, to empower us, even as his Holy Spirit lives in us. I mean, I could just go off right now because this is the stuff that's really passionate, right? But this is the gospel truth. And this is why we're here. And all of this is fueled by this love. This love that we receive from him and then that pours out of us. And we get to do this together.
that's exciting.
And that's the church.
That's the
Yes,
church.
yes,
That's what the
yes,
church
yes,
is supposed
the
to
church.
be. And I said, you just get excited. You don't want to see people hurt. But when you can, your eyes are going to see somebody different than mine, right? Because when we've lived it, our eyes see things that somebody else's eyes aren't going to see.
That's right.
And when you can see that person, and I don't remember who said it, probably Christine Kane maybe. She says, the question is, we may see other people's pain. The question is, are we going to be willing to step into it?
That's right.
Because that's going to take sacrifice on our part. That's going to take surrender, some timing. It's not always pretty, but that's the church. And when we can be that and step into that gap and actually see somebody that they feel seen, and then look at when they're looking at us like, why me, or why are you willing? First, we bring them hope to think somebody else. I say scarred, right? They're already wearing the scar. They've been through it. But then when you say, man, I want to walk it with you because I want something better for you, and I know how to get it. I know how to lead you there. It's possible.
That's right.
It's possible. It's not just, it's faith, but it's faith played out already. It's possible.
That's
We're
right.
on the other side of it. To me, that's when the churches will be flooded, you know. But we got to unleash, ladies, friends, girls, whatever, you know me. We have to unleash whatever's holding us back.
That's right.
Because the church needs to be the church. And I look forward to unpacking some of these topics. A little nervous unpacking some of these topics. They guarantee me, friends, they'd give me questions ahead of time. Now, y'all know me. I'm not real good at that. But it's going to be good. So so there you go. You got a little bit, kind of the why behind the podcast. We're going to be coming once a month. You'll get an episode that will drop once a month. So subscribe to it. You'll want to subscribe, share it out with somebody if there's an episode that's been helpful to you. Yeah. But this podcast is for you. And my dream would be one day that these ladies are sitting here being able to take calls from you.
Ooh.
You know, like this is
yes.
Like a real
I like this vision.
To say this is my pain. Maybe I listen a little too much to Dave Ramsey. And they're just all so confident that but you know what they do? They always take them back to the baby steps.
That's right.
And that's what I love about what we're doing. It's like, how do we listen? How do we see? And then how do we bring us back into reality, right? Yeah. That we can show that there's hope, that it's fixable, or it'll buff, right? But then we actually do the work, friends, so that the transformation can come. That's what's going to show off to our communities. That's how God's glory is going to be shown.
That's right.
And I go back to the gospel, right? The guy that was in trouble because he got his sight back, and the Pharisees weren't liking it. Remember, he came after his parents.
It was on Sabbath, wasn't it?
Yeah. And remember, and he's like, they were trying to figure out all the root causes of the why. And him in his simplicity, which is me, in my simplicity, says, look, guys, think what you want of the man. All I know is I was blind and now I see.
That's right.
Right? That's our hope for this podcast. All I know is I was broken in this way, and now I'm not, because it was fixable. It buffed. And it was by the grace of God that it buffed. And we have to remember that, friends. We have to remember that what grace is for. We have to remember that we need a Savior.
Yes.
And when we become unshackled, I think that will just flow out of us, that it'll just be contagious.
Yes. I think we should put our hands in and say unshackled on 3.
Yes.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Unshackled!
I love it. So you can see how fun it is to be sitting here with us. So pull you up a chair. Join us once a month. Grab that coffee or hot tea or whatever your choice is. Bring a notepad, though, because there's going to be times you're going to want to stop, play, and take a note or slow it down to a turtle's crawl. Yeah. So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Subscribe, share it out, and we'll see you next month also.
Yep.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.